Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ESS BIZTOOLS Business Advisory Services podcast series. Today, I am privileged to have Mark Holton, a director of Smith Inc. and a very experienced accountant in public practice on the Central Coast of New South Wales, joining us for a commentary on implementing business advisory services. I hope that you enjoy this presentation and that if you have any questions or comments that relate to the implementation of business advisory services in your accounting firm, or for that matter, your business advisory, chief financial officer, or bookkeeping firm, that you will send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. We will now go to the conversation with Mark Holton. Thank you. Welcome to this discussion today. And I have as my guest Mark Holton, a director of Smith Inc. Proprietary Limited, a well-known accountancy coaching organisation that helps accountancy firms introduce a range of diversified services. How are you today, Mark?
You're very well, thanks, Peter. How are you?
Good, thanks.
That's the way.
Mark, I'm glad to see that the barricades are coming down around Australia, so perhaps everyone's going to be able to get back to proper work.
Yeah, a little bit, Pete. Apparently us New South Welshmen can get into Melbourne, Victoria. Still can't get near Queensland, by the way.
No, it's a bit of a problem.
Still locked down. I'm not even sure if WA ever let us back in, but still.
Yeah, they might want the test cricket, eh? That might be what's going to get them back in.
Yeah,
Mark, accountants have got some real opportunities in front of them at present, haven't they? Looking at what's likely to happen in 2022. Hopefully the world's going to get back into top gear. What do you see as the position for accountants at present? Do they go back to just doing what they were doing 2 years ago? Basically concentrating on annual accounts and tax returns, or do they take the opportunity now to expand their services?
Yeah, great question, Pete. Let me first of all say, gee, I hope 2022 is better than 2021.
Oh, you'll do.
Again, this time last year, I was saying I was hoping 21 was better than 20. I think this one's been worse. The accounting industry has been beaten up with trying to get its work done as it normally does, as well as dealing with stimulus measures. And I know we had this last year as well, but it just seems this year's been tougher. Pete, to answer the question about what should the firms be doing, prior to COVID, there was a reasonable amount of interest in my mind in advisory. I've never seen as much interest over the last probably 3 or 4 months with regard to accounting firms doing it in a more systemized manner. When you mentioned should they go back and just get stuck into compliance, tax, accounting and everything, we're going to do that anyway. I mean, that's the core business in the game. But every accounting firm does advisory. Everyone I've spoken to over 25 years tell me they do advisory. Often it's instigated by somebody else other than themselves, such as the client, such as a bank. It's not promoted proactively. It's really, well, we've got this job to do, we better do it. Classic example of budget and the cash flow for lenders. We do it because the client can't. We bill it, often not as much as we should, because we don't really understand the value proposition behind it, because we're doing it too one-off, too piecemeal. And then we provide it to the client goes to bank, end of job. I've always looked at budgets and cash flows as the entree point to getting the client onto quarterly board of advice meetings, where the accounting firm as the external chair holds the client accountable to the action plan for success. In fact, Pete, I don't call it a budget and a cash flow anymore, because when I did, clients pushed back against me and said, what do I need that for? Never had one before. In fact, some of them said, well, you never mentioned this to me. You never brought it up, which is fair. So I had to sort of redefine, sit them down, and in some respects, what I call unlearn them in order to learn them, which is a valid educational concept. If you're doing things left-handed, it's very hard just to say, do it right-handed. You've got to get off the old process to come onto the new one. But I see the opportunity now in 2022, providing the world stays somewhat sane and Australians and states stay somewhat sane, so we can actually interact, go and see each other, do things other than on Zoom and the like, as being the year where you could really start to kick this off. But if every firm does advisory, what aren't they doing well? And a simple answer to that, Pete, is they're not doing it in a divisional manner. They're not putting in the right systems, processes, and people resources. So it's not systemized. And because of that, its longevity gets challenged every time you do it. But I want to make that point clear. Every firm's doing advisory, often one-off type arrangements, generally underbilled. Sometimes just whip goes into the register and it gets billed with compliance, if we've got the guts to bill it all, that is. So we've got to do it smarter, Pete. Got to do it smarter. It's not new. Yeah, you know, a lot of people I see in the industry talk it up as being new, but it isn't. I mean, yeah, I was doing budgets and cash flows for clients 30 years ago. And I was using Lotus 1, 2, 3, believe it or not, that later become unacceptable because we all moved to the Microsoft suite.
Yeah.
But it's nothing new.
Yeah.
These days, certainly with cloud-based technology and everything else, we can do it smarter. And in my mind, what it should do is only be the entree point to a variety of other services you can offer your clients.
Yeah, well, Mark, talking about a variety of other services, there was an interesting report in the Financial Review a couple of weeks ago, which quoted the joint founder of Equitise. Now, Equitise is a ASIC-appointed crowdsource funding intermediary. They operate in New Zealand, in Auckland, and also in Sydney. And Johnny Wilkinson indicated that Equitise and most all the other intermediaries are only really processing 5% of the companies that apply to them or come to talk to them about potentially raising crowdsource funding money, which is up to $5 million they can raise in 12 months. And then he's indicated that only 70% of the 5%, so it worked out a bit over 3.5%, actually raise money. Now, I've done some calculations, and I think that the total number of companies that's tried to get crowdsource funding in 2021 was about 1,625 companies. And out of them, 65 raised $46 million, which was up 125%. But what it meant was about 1,580 of those companies that started off were not successful. They never even got a Guernsey to play the game. It's like turning up to play football and you don't even get on the pitch. It's a bit hard to score a try or a goal, isn't it, if you're not on the game? When I look at it, a lot of the work that's required in crowdsource funding is what's required in any sort of business venture, a business plan, budgets, cash flows. It's nothing really fancy. I think accountants could have been more proactive in helping clients that are wanting to do this sort of work. What do you think?
I agree 100%, Pete. My first question is Johnny Wilkinson. That's not that bloke that kicked the field goal that stopped us winning the World Cup years ago.
I don't think it was him, but
I'm going to say.
I'll ask him next time I
should, Pete. You want to sort him out? Yeah, I agree, Pete. I really do. There's opportunities everywhere, but opportunities take time. Opportunities take systems and process, and opportunities need good people behind them to drive them. I mean, crowdsource funding is a classic example of something that accountants should get better at. And I'll throw another one in there, and that's research and development.
Yes, most definitely.
I was talking to a firm the other day, they're saying really interested in trying to work out grants so I could help the client fund our bill. So we'll go out and do advisory and maybe get a business startup or a business success, or call it what you will, grant, but never contemplated R&D work either. You know, it's reasonably simple with good software behind you and good systems, and pretty darn profitable too. Pete, I think the challenge now for the industry is we've been talking about this forever. You know, I go to every firm I go to, it has business advisory services on their wall, their website, their banners. when I ask, what is it? Very few in the firm can tell me exactly what it means. In fact, they often say to me, what is business advisory services in your mind? And I always hit them with the same response, Pete, and that is anything that's not compliance.
Yes.
Anything that the government doesn't force you to do, and if you don't do it, will hit you on the head with a house brick and penalise you. That's how broad it is. So when we're talking about restructuring, when we're talking about putting in different entities, when we're talking about applying for R&D grants, assisting them, helping them with budgets, cash flows, succession planning, retirement planning, estate planning, anything and everything, tax planning, obviously, is advisory. We've just got to start to look at doing it in a more organised fashion with the right people in a scalable model. So when we do it, it is not just voluminous from a revenue perspective, it's voluminous from a profitability perspective. And I think that's one of the other issues, that if too many high level paid people in the firm spend too much time doing what could be done by the other guys underneath them who bill out at a much lower rate and cost a much lower rate, surely that model's a more profitable model than having partners and seniors doing tasks that should be done by the other guys.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you on that.
I'm a big believer, Pete, that the firms would never do that in compliance.
That's right.
They have a structured, scalable model where the right person does the right task at the right pay rate. When it comes to advisory, I don't know what it is. Are we too scared just to push it down? Are we too concerned to go and develop the people at the base level that could do the easy, simple, repetitive tasks? Heaven forbid, could we even outsource that type of work? And then have our top line people doing what they should do, and that is making sure it's correct, working with the partner, and the partner doing what they should do, which is client engagement and client development. You know, so we've got to start to think not just about what it is, but how to do it smarter.
Yes, I agree. And there's numerous issues, isn't there? A simple thing like debtors is another area. You know, a few years ago, we won a dubious international award. Australia had the longest debtors days outstanding. Now, there's been a few attempts made by the federal government and some big businesses to say they're going to improve their debtors' payments. But I read a report recently that said that 3 years later, we've reduced debtors' days outstanding in Australia by 0.4 of a day. I think we're still the longest debtors' days outstanding in the world. And it's work that accountants could go in and look at the system, in some cases, what system, that their clients have got in operation.
Look, agreed 100%. That's a record you don't exactly want to boast about, Pete, isn't it? You know, it's when you look at doing advisory work, a lot of firms I talk to look too high too soon. In other words, how do I do this high-level task with this client? When really what the client's doing is leaking profitability, has pretty poor cash flow, because one of the key drivers of success in their business is not going the right way. And when you start to dig into the majority, not all, the majority, it's debtors, it's receivables. Clients, customers are paying them slower and later this year than they did last year.
Yep.
So the real question is, why is that the case? You know, and generally the answer is, well, Pete, I'd love to pay you now, but I can't because somebody else hasn't paid me.
Yep.
So we're both caught in this nasty cash flow cycle. Firms need to think about, one, do I want to do that type of work? Answer yes or no. If the answer is yes, internalize it, get the systems and processes right. Look at the ESS BIZTOOLS debtor system. It's a brilliant one. But if that's not their cup of tea, Pete, then what strategic alliances can I form to help my clients better manage their receivables issue, their cash flow issue, et cetera, et cetera? I know in my firm, we tried both models. We went for the latter eventually, but we gave both a go. So we did it internally, we did it externally. But the one thing we did do was project manage it, Pete, as the trusted advisor, not dumped it on someone and said, off you go, work with this client and see how you travel.
Yeah, the
But-
project management's very important. I do a bit of work like that in our consultancy business, and it works quite well because the accountant should still be involved, should know what's going on, and be able to monitor the client. Because if you get an outsider firm in to do something, it's a once-off job for them. They're not going to stay around to follow it through. Unless all you ever want to do is the tax return work, and then you're saying you don't want to do that work at all, well, someone else will do it. But
Peter,
those firms then run the risk they'll lose a fair bit more of the work.
So you could lose the client, to be honest.
Yep.
You know, let's look at the reality of life. You know, if somebody's receivables are out of control, their debtors' days are going up each year, simply sitting down with them and saying, if you collect your debts quicker, you're going to have more cash flow. Well, that's a blinding flash of the obvious, isn't it?
Mm.
So how many BFOs can you drop on them before they start to think, hey, all he does is tell me what to do. He doesn't help me.
Mm.
He doesn't show me how to do it. He doesn't put me in contact with people who can actually assist me better manage this. You know, he or she has never spoken to me about outsourcing my receivables. Okay. And looked at the scenario where if we did put it into a debt collection type situation or a debt management situation, what would their fee be and how far would it need to come down to offset that fee? You know, like show me the financial impact of a key decision before I make it. Yeah, that's the sort of stuff we're going to be doing. But I've long believed we are the trusted advisor. We are the project manager. That doesn't mean we do all the work in the firm, but it means we control it. We know what's going on, when it's going on, what it costs, who's doing what, and we manage it accordingly, be it internally or externally to what our firm does.
Yes, Mark, another area that I think a lot of accountants can look at also is in charge out rates, especially for tradies. A couple of our subscribers have told us recently that they got well over 100 tradie firms each year that they're putting through our charge out rate calculator. And what that's looking at is the number of hours someone's going to work, their productivity, the expected productivity, what their overhead costs are, what the markup is they're going to put on external purchases for clients. And when you put all that into a spreadsheet, does it end up that the business theoretically is going to earn the profit target? It's a great tool. And what you can then lead on to is something you mentioned before. You then either get monthly or quarterly financial accounts, so you can have a business review meeting with the client to see how they're going. Now, every accountant in Australia has got tradie clients. Yet when I talk to tradie business people wearing my consulting hat, most of them have never had any accountant suggest that sort of service to them. So do you think they should be?
I've always believed they should be. The issue with our industry is we're busy, we're time poor. And if that's the case, then surely our existing model has to change.
Mm.
I can't take my team that are already flat out and make them more flat out and expect success any more than a client who come to you and said, look, I'm really busy. I have no time, but I want to buy another business. You know, what do you think? Well, where's the business plan?
Yeah.
Where's the resources? Where's the strategy? And if that doesn't stack up, then all you're doing is putting another layer of pressure on an already frail model. So that's not smart. You know, smart is, you know, talking to clients as we should be about their strategic focus, their strategic plan, doing days with them focused on strategy. I guarantee you many have never done it.
Mm.
But to do all these things, it comes back to time. It comes back to capacity. And has your firm done a capacity review? Do you have ideal advisory staff members internally in your firm that you've never let loose? If you don't, then you've got to face the reality, one, of not doing it, or two, going out and finding staff who can help you in this space. So looking to recruit specialist staff. Okay, now they're not that easy to find, don't get me wrong, but they're out there. I know a firm I work with recently found one in a different state, brought them up. You know, they were prepared to look a lot further than their local space to find good people who could drive this specialised, divisionalised process. So I believe, yes, I believe firms should be doing it because the client wants it, they value it. I also believe in the future competitiveness in this industry will be based not only on our ability to do compliance work. I think given that we're already doing advisory and we're already theoretically billing it, then it shouldn't be that difficult, should it, Pete, to set up a model, get your systems and processes right, or reach out to someone that can help you. That's certainly what I do with the accounting industry. And then start to look at your resources. Do you have enough staff? Are they the right staff? Is there someone sitting there sleeping that could otherwise be reactivated into a better advisory / accountant, more of a financial storyteller per se? But if the model's not right, it ain't going to fix itself.
Mm. Yeah, and this is the challenge that accountants have got. Obviously, at ESS BizTools, we've developed over 30 packages of all sorts of things. Some of the things we've talked about today, crowdsource funding. The other big opportunity, I think, is early stage innovation company, and that flows on from research and development, which you were talking about earlier. Traditionally in Australia, there's about 14 to 15,000 companies a year claim the research and development rebate. There's some expectation this year that could be up over 20,000 because of people being working at home, may have been fiddling with things there. And the majority of those companies are SME type businesses. They're not the big end of town. So all these activities are presenting opportunities that flow on, because if someone's doing research and development, they then may want to raise capital so they can go to early stage innovation company. So there's plenty of opportunities there. And we've alluded to a few of these today, Mark. So hopefully people who want to follow through could contact you or me. So if they want to contact you, you want to give them your contact details, please?
Sure, Pete. The best way to get me is by email, everyone. That's mark.holton, Holton, at smithinc.com. Or you'll find all our details at www.smithink.com, including our upcoming event that we're doing on the Gold Coast early next year, Young Guns, which is focusing predominantly on the younger, more entrepreneurial development type accountant, partner, intermediate, and providing some of the softer type skills that might help them become better managers, better leaders, better client service accountants in the future.
Yes, thanks, Mark. And obviously, if you want to contact me, peter@essbiztools.com.au. Thank you for joining us today, Mark, in the ESS BizTools Business Advisory Services podcast. And I look forward to talking to you again, probably in 2022 now. But to everyone listening, thank you very much and have a great day. Thanks, Mark.
Pete. My pleasure. All the best.
Thank you.